Welcome to The Emerging Pearl, created by our behind-the-scenes director and producer, Eliza Boné. Her vision for this show is to inspire women to not merely exist, but to thrive and embrace a life defined by love, passion, healing, and serenity. My name is Tracy Siegel. I'm a certified nutritionist with Pure Nutrition and guest host for this segment. Today we are going to share effective strategies for coping with stress and overwhelm. As women, we face unending challenges and time limitations that keep us in constant state of ongoing stress. This is especially true when we have special events, family staying with us, and an extended to-do list. However, today, we will share how to mitigate some of those stress culprits and how to implement some easy ways to de-stress, and also we will look at the effect stress has on our overall health and well-being. Joining me today is Lyn Delmastro-Thompson, BodyTalk practitioner. Welcome to the show, Lyn. We're so excited to have you here.
Yeah.
So you're with BodyTalk. Tell me a little bit about BodyTalk.
So BodyTalk is a mind-body medicine, and it's really different in that it really wants to we want to understand the story that's going on behind the symptoms. So rather than just kind of giving somebody a label and a diagnosis, we're actually understanding what the body is saying through the different symptoms like pain or digestive issues. And then as we understand the symptoms, we're able to kind of rebalance the system and the body can heal itself.
Wow, that is fascinating. How did you get into this line of work?
So I had my own healing journey. I got really sick about 10 years ago and started exploring some alternative healing modalities. And BodyTalk came into my life about 4 years ago when I had really bad pain in a knee and nothing else seemed to help. And so I tried a session and it was amazing and I couldn't wait to study it myself.
Oh, that's fantastic. And go and share it with the world.
Yes.
So as women, we are always juggling family, career, home, and so much more. We are constantly being pulled in multiple directions. Special events, family traditions can add an extra layer of that stress. So tell me, in your practice and in your personal life, what is something that might feed to this ongoing challenge for so many women?
So I think one of the biggest challenges we as women face is not setting good, clear boundaries for ourselves. So we go through our days and our weeks and we say yes to everything. People ask, can you do this for me? And we say yes. And can you pick that up for me? Yes. Can you do this? Can you do that? And we hardly ever say no because we feel like we want to be able to say yes to people in our lives, but we don't think about the impact that that has on us. So we just go, 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 say yes to so many things, and by saying yes to so many things, we're sort of saying no to ourselves some of the time.
Wow, that's a great way of looking at that. So what is an example in how you, in your personal life, have you established boundaries, and then how do you help your clients that you serve do that as well?
So sometimes, you know, I also struggle within my relationship with my husband. Sometimes he'll ask, can you do this? Can you do that? And I'm trying to keep growing my business and, you know, be supportive of him as well. But I sometimes have to say, hey, honey, no, I can't pick that up for you today. You know, just because I work for myself doesn't mean that I can run your errands because I'm working.
Right.
So being clear with that.
Okay.
And I see that a lot with clients who are moms, especially. You know, they take on everything, and they don't really have any time for themselves because they're so busy taking care of their kids and their husbands.
That self-care really does get put on the back burner for most women because they're putting everything else in front of them. I see that from a nutritional perspective as well. Women coming in who, you know, are in adrenal fatigue and don't even know it, or who are really struggling with how to develop and create really nutrition and nutrient dense meals for their families, but they simply can't create the time or don't feel like they can create the time to do it. So we have all of the stress in our lives, and then it's compounded by the stress of what not eating a nutritional diet does. You know, there's a lot of foods that have really inflammatory properties and we're not even aware of what's happening. So, you know, part of what I want to do is inspire women to make these changes, to put themselves first, to know that they're worth that time, and to realize that if, you know, they really do take the time, they will just feel better all around. So stress is such a big part of this, and helping to kind of manage that is so powerful from a healing perspective. So on that note, so self-care is the top item that gets crossed off most of our lists.
Yes.
So we make everyone else a priority, often leave no time or energy to dedicate to ourselves. Do you find this a critical element to reducing stress and overwhelm, especially in your clients and in your own life?
Well, I think you've already kind of mentioned the importance of self-care, but I'd like to kind of dive a little bit more into that topic. You know, taking time each day to do things that are just for us and that really nurture us. So, you know, for me personally, that might be exercising, it might be spending time in nature, taking a nice bath, like things that are really balancing to the nervous system, because we're constantly, most of us, in this state of go, 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 which leads to stress. And so if we take time to slow down and you know, smell the roses, so to speak, then we can really rebalance ourselves and take care of our own selves first, filling our cup, and then having more to give to those in our lives.
So what are some examples of recommendations that you would have for your clients?
So some of the things that sometimes I suggest are starting a meditation practice in the morning. So whether that be spending 5 to 10 minutes a day, just quietly, you know, quieting the mind, setting the intention for the day. We often kind of just jump out of bed in the morning and get going and don't really take the time to set an intention for the day. So that can be a real game changer. I think time outside in nature in places that feel really nurturing is another self-care that I think is really powerful, and one that kind of we don't often think of. And it can be tricky sometimes living where we do, where the winter kind of sets in and it's rainy and maybe we don't want to go outside as much. But we feel better kind of when we get to breathe that fresh air and connect with the elements.
Kind of switch that thinking a little bit and that mindset. You know, so for me in working with my clients, you know, meditation, kind of approaching it from a more holistic approach, which is, you know, how I do it. The meditation is such a big part of it, the mindfulness. For me, being mindful of how your body responds when you eat certain foods is a huge part of this.
Definitely.
You know, we're inundated all the time with information about if you have heartburn, take Prilosec. If you have this, take this. But we're not really discussing root causes and what's really going on and why we're having those symptoms. So for me, it's kind of going back to the basics and really working with my clients for that kind of connection, that emotional connection, that physiological connection to what they're putting in their mouth and the responses that they're getting. Because our bodies are constantly telling us what it needs and what it does not like. And it's just about teaching that awareness and moving forward with that. One thing that we don't really talk enough about is the mind-gut connection. You know, we always, you know, when we're nervous, we feel butterflies and, you know, we get that kind of stomach distress. But what we don't talk about is what the message is from our gut send to our brain when we're eating foods that our body isn't responding well to. You know, they're doing more and more studies now where they're finding that inflammatory foods or foods that the body doesn't like result in anxiety, depression, and a host of more emotional issues and mental issues as well. So having that awareness and working through some of those symptoms as well is extraordinarily powerful for the women that we work with.
For sure. Awareness is such a big piece.
And education in this is such a big piece in this. And I think the most powerful component is taking the time to be aware, to be mindful, to listen to what your body is saying. Because you are really the only person who knows what it feels like to be in your body. You are your best advocate. So being able to effectively communicate that gives us the power to make recommendations and to help them. So Lyn, I understand you have a simple brain balancing technique that can help decrease stress levels. I would love for you to tell me more about that.
Yes, and I'd love to also show you guys how to use this technique as well.
Fabulous.
So the technique is actually called cortices, and cortices refers to the outer layers of the brain, the cortex, the right and left cortex. But with this technique, we're balancing the entire brain, so all of the different structures within the brain. We're helping to improve communication between right and left hemispheres of the brain. We're resetting the stress response. So we're helping to rebalance the nervous system. And when we rebalance the brain, we also see that the whole body can be rebalanced. So some of the benefits of this are diminishing cold spots or hot spots in the brain, so where there's too much or too little blood supply. And what we also find is a lot of times when there's something physical happening in the rest of the body, it's reflected in something in the brain as well. So when we balance the brain, we're balancing the body as well.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Do you find that you utilize this technique in your personal life as well?
Yes, I'm always using this at least once a day, hopefully more than that. And it's a technique that I teach to all of my clients. I teach it to people who are not even clients because it's just a powerful technique that you can kind of keep in your back pocket and use every day, because who doesn't need a little bit more mental clarity and a little bit less stress in their lives?
Absolutely. And again, we keep talking about this stress because it's just really so critical. You know, stress can lead to, you know, a host of inflammatory illness in the body. And one of the things that is, you know, of big concern too is the negative impact it has on immune function. You know, when you're stressed out, you suppress overall immune function, making you more vulnerable to illness. So in my line of work, I mean, it's amazing from a brain balancing, talking about stress, kind of recalibrating things. You know, I'm, you know, a big advocate for that from my scope of work as well, just simply because in order to have proper digestion, you need to be sitting in what's referred to as a parasympathetic state. The brain needs to be in a calm, relaxed state to properly digest food. It's standard physiology.
Right.
So, but when we're constantly eating on the go, we're running here, running there. What an amazing practice to do to just really decompress and help body systems in general. It just promotes overall function.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if we actually did this before we ate, what would happen too.
I would think the impacts would be fairly profound, and we'd have a lot of healthier people running around. You know, because I think we don't think about like digestion. We think about eating because we're hungry, and we don't think about the physiological processes that are occurring behind the scenes. And it really is kind of a north to south process. It starts in our brain and it travels down. And so being in this parasympathetic state is absolutely critical for proper function and proper digestion, and then of course assimilation of the nutrients so our body can actually convert that to usable forms of energy. So I love that you do that. I would imagine that's probably one of the most powerful tools that you use in your practice.
Yes, and I'd love to share it with everyone if.
Okay, do you want to do a demonstration?
Yes.
No, we would love to see it.
Okay, so one hand comes to the back of the head,
Okay.
and it's sort of, fingers are together, grasping kind of where the neck and the head meet.
Okay.
The other hand, the fingers are spread a little bit wider, so you're going to tap lightly over the top of the head,
Okay.
and then you're going to tap over the heart.
Now, are you actually physically touching your body,
So you
or
can,
does it matter?
or you can do it more energetically. So I tend to be a little more energetic.
Okay.
And then you're going to tap over your kind of navel as well.
Okay.
So those, in BodyTalk, we talk about these being our three brains. So I'm going to move this up another hand width. So it's like I'm covering the next portion of my skull, and I'm doing the same 3 places of tapping.
Okay.
And I want to make sure that I'm also taking some nice deep breaths as I'm doing this. We don't want to do it and just hold our breath. So I'm moving this hand again, another hand width.
Okay.
And so it's about 2 breath cycles with each hand in the hand position, meaning this hand position. And sometimes I'll tap twice through before moving. And then I'm moving to the top of my head. You can just tap right over top of that hand.
Okay.
And then continuing to tap all 3 areas of the head, the heart, and the digestive system.
I think we forget the powerful, powerful effects of breathing.
Yes.
Deep belly breathing.
Yes,
You know, I
definitely.
feel sometimes when we're in a really stressed state, we have a tendency to breathe more from our upper register, which
Right.
helps induce anxiety and stress. You know, and you can have tingling in your fingers and kind of some odd sensations. So really being mindful and breathing deeply is probably a big part of this as well.
So this is kind of the last hand position. I've worked my
Okay.
way forward, so my hand is kind of in line with my eyebrows.
Okay.
And then it's not really the last, but it's the last of working forward. And then finally we hold the sides of our head. And the sides of our head, this is the temporal lobes of the brain, but deep inside we have the limbic structure of the brain, and we have the amygdala, which is responsible for fight or flight. So
Right.
when I hold here, I often feel just a little bit of a, I'm calming down.
Okay.
And then one hand, doesn't matter which, is going to stay holding the side. The other will go back to doing just the tapping.
And when we're in a fight or flight, or when we're in a high stress state of mind, our body is kind of chronically in this fight or flight. So I would assume that doing this tapping kind of switches the brain and gets it more into that calm.
Rest and digest kind of state.
Wow.
And it's really powerful sometimes if you're dealing with a big trauma or a particularly, bad anxiety situation. You can use that. I just did it once, but you can do it after you finish. You can do it several times in a row.
Okay.
And that's where the real power gets in there for the situations that are super stressful and the
Right.
nervous system really needs the rebalance.
Okay.
So like I have an example of one time I was at a 4th of July gathering and there were fireworks outside and they were so low that I was actually going into a fight or flight type of reaction because I thought that, the house was going to catch on fire or people were getting like little sparks hitting them. So I went inside to the bathroom and I just repeatedly did that about 5 times and I could feel my nervous system start to calm back down and I felt more like myself.
You touched on a couple points, and really, again, from a nutritional perspective, just understanding that kind of mind and brain gut connection and being aware of that. I think that is really so critical. But moving on, it seems most alternative and mainstream practitioners agree on a very common technique to help decrease stress and overwhelm, which is something we just touched on, which was the deep breathing.
Right.
So why don't you talk to in a little bit more detail about that and how you kind of incorporate that into your practice and your recommendations for your clients?
Sure. So I always like to say deep breathing is one of the most powerful tools because we can do it anywhere. It doesn't require any special equipment. It doesn't require us going any particular place. So once we learn kind of how to breathe deeply, and most of us really don't know how to breathe properly. We come into this world as babies knowing how to, but we get so stressed out. Like you were saying, we breathe mostly in our chest and our lungs, and there's no kind of diaphragmatic breathing happening.
Right.
So really, the bottom nerves of the lungs actually are the ones connected to that parasympathetic state, that rest and digest. So if we're not even getting to the bottom of our lungs when we're breathing, we're just constantly kind of fueling the fight or flight response. So, what I teach people is just that they can learn how to slow down their breathing, to deepen their breathing. That's what most of us need, is just a little bit slower, a little bit deeper, and obviously being a little bit more mindful because we don't often think about our breathing until we take a deep breath or we sigh because we've been holding our breath.
Yeah.
And as we begin to work with that, there's just all sorts of things that happen in the nervous system. And there's a kind of a resonance that happens between the heart and the breath, so it can actually affect your heart rate. It'll affect digestion as well. So it'll switch you back out of, that state where your body can't really digest because you're getting ready to run away from some scary things.
Right.
And let your body actually start digesting, let your immune system start coming back online and fighting off whatever it needs to fight off.
Okay. How frequently during the course of a day do you recommend that your clients are mindful and just sit and take really deep cleansing breaths?
I think at least several times a day it's good to make a habit, even if it's just for a minute. Sometimes people think it has to be some big long thing.
Right.
And, if we can just integrate it into our day, like, we're getting ready to eat our meal, let's just take a couple nice deep breaths. We're getting ready in the morning, let's just take, a minute or two and just breathe.
Yeah.
You know, it's great if we can make an extended practice time once a day for, 10 to 20 minutes, but to some people that's a little bit overwhelming and daunting. So, there's no harm in just starting small and working up.
Yeah.
And, integrating it as much as you can throughout the day, as much as you can be mindful.
Do you recommend to your clients that they incorporate the breathing with their meditation practices as you move forward? Again, you indicated starting small, but is meditation kind of ultimately a part of what you recommend for your clients, or?
I think I tend to see them as two separate kinds of things. I mean, obviously, when you're being mindful and you're meditating, you probably will be a little more aware of your breath. But sometimes I just like people to do some explorations of their breath. So just taking some time to really notice, how am I breathing? Am I breathing shallowly? Am I breathing deeply? Where do I feel the breath in my body? Do I feel it mostly in my chest? Do I feel anything moving in my abdomen area? And then, I like to play with just counting a lot of times. So see how many counts it takes to inhale, how many counts it takes to exhale, and see if they can slow that down by adding, another 1 or 2 counts.
Yeah. Again, going back to mindfulness practices, so important.
Right. Yeah.
So, from a nutritional perspective, I mean, there's so much crossover in this awareness and mind and body and what we're doing. But again, digestion and proper digestion is such a critical component of nutrition, and it's one of the most vastly overlooked pieces. When I work with clients and I say, how is your digestion? They're like, I don't know, because it's not really something we think about.
Right.
We're so used to having symptoms that we're not asking why we have them. We're just masking the issue itself.
Right. You have heartburn, take a pill for that and make it go away.
Right. So part of, my work is really, before you sit down to a meal, take a couple really deep cleansing breaths. Express gratitude for those that are around you or the meal that you're about to consume, and really kind of switch kind of your brain and the way it's thinking and that current state that it's in, and that constant kind of fight or flight, if you will, that we spend the vast majority of our day working in. Because it really does allow food to become nourishing, healing, and what it was intended for. So that's such a powerful recommendation for people, and just a simple little thing to do.
Right.
Take a breath before you eat.
Right.
Don't eat standing up.
Don't eat in front of the TV.
Don't eat in front of the TV. Remove the iPad. Put your phones away. So just really have it be nourishing and healing for the body. And it's just amazing the impacts that it can have on health when you do these tiny, simple little things. They seem simple to us, and they, but they're so powerful. They're so powerful. So these little recommendations can go such a long way.
I think that's the power in it too, is we don't have to make huge changes. I think a lot of people think for health that we have to make these huge shifts, and that can feel overwhelming and intimidating.
Right. When I think, you have a condition, or you have an illness, or you have something, you're not feeling well, and you go to the doctor and you're told, just don't do it anymore. It's not that simple. You're not giving them the tools and the information to go out and be successful. Some people don't understand what that means. So when you have these conversations and you give them these tiny little tweaks that have incredible impacts, it feels so amazing to them. They're like, oh, I can do that. It's sustainable, it's manageable. And so that's just incredible. So well, I'm so excited we had the opportunity to sit down and talk today, and I think we covered some really fantastic material about how we can help these women de-stress and manage their lifestyles and still
make themselves a priority.
Yes, and make themselves a priority. And the biggest thing for me is making them know they're worth it. They're worth the time. They're worth the energy. And, just making that commitment to themselves is incredible. So thank you so much for being here.
Definitely.
So the show's producer, Eliza Boné, is passionate about sharing local resources to support women in their pursuit of reducing their stress load. For this reason, she is offering an emailed copy of Steps of Embracing Your Serenity and a complimentary wellness assessment. Eliza is an essential oils wellness advocate, speaker, mentor, and teacher. She also offers retreats and workshops to women battling the lingering effects of trauma, abuse, anxiety, and depression. During the wellness assessment, she identifies emotional and mental obstacles that could be affecting us in many other areas of our lives. Many times, these blocks manifest themselves physically. Eliza will give you tips and strategies customized to your needs during your free consultation. We are honored she has also invited us back to our community. Lyn, please tell me about your gift to viewers.
Well, I actually have two different gifts. The first is a consultation with me. So if you're kind of perplexed by what's going on with your body, if you're kind of having different symptoms and you're wondering what the story might be of the symptoms, I would love to speak with the viewers about what's going on with them and offer a little bit of insight into what the story might be from the approach that I use. And the other gift that I have is a free meditation download. So this is a great self-care practice, a great relaxation tool, and it basically just guides them through visualizing their body as a healing garden.
Wonderful.
So it's just a nature scene.
Lyn, thank you so much for sharing those generous offerings with us. With respect to me, I do offer 30-minute complimentary consultations for all of my clients. If you'd like to learn more about me and my line of work, you can visit me at my website. But if you're interested, please email the show to connect with the various complimentary bonuses being offered today. Lyn, thank you so much for sharing all of your expertise in this area and for your amazing offerings. And thank you so much, audience, for joining us. Tune in next month for another informative session that will inspire you to discover and reveal your inner pearl.